And hopefully in my next plant swap, this will be something that I will be swapping. Besides the yellowing leaf that you see here, it's normal. Hi, it's Fiona from Feline Jungle, and we're doing a houseplant tour today. It's not your usual houseplant tour where I go over all the nice plants in my house. Instead, we're going to go over plants that are not doing as well or need more attention. In my previous burnout video, I talked about how I was being overworked and stressed and just all these negative feelings and how I needed to change direction to feel more positive again. If you're feeling burnt out at home or at work, you can check out that video where I just go over my self-care routine and hopefully it'll inspire something in you too. One of the first things I did in that video is just to declutter my house and tidy up everything to create a safe space for myself to think. And as I was cleaning this plant wall behind me, I noticed a lot of plants needed more attention. With me feeling more motivated and spring just a couple weeks away, I thought it would be nice to do a houseplant tour just to assess all the plants in my house and how we can make them happier, and also how to style them to enhance the beauty of the plants. As I go through this, I definitely want your input and your suggestions, so leave your comments below. Let's just start off with the plant wall that's behind me. Here on the bottom shelf, there's not really much we need to talk about. This gloriosum I talked about in my care video. We're going to repot it in a horizontal pot. Starting on this upper plant shelf is where I want to talk more about things like this watermelon peperomia. It's definitely grown a lot this winter, and it even has like a little inflorescence, but these bottom leaves that are over here definitely need some pruning. I'm not sure what's happening over here. These bottom leaves are just droopy even though it's watered. It does look like it's happy. There's new leaves coming out. It just looks a little bit lopsided. A good pruning and adding more soil will definitely make this plant look a lot better. Right next to it is the Anthurium vitarifolium. This is one of the first plants that I imported, and since then it's been kept in the same pot. It's not really doing too well. It's like it has a new growth point, but it didn't do anything this winter. And I also snapped a leaf. It's not coming off, but it's slowly turning yellow. So this leaf is basically a goner. And I just want to do something with it. Maybe change the medium. Right now it's in orchid bark and moss. Maybe I should change it to ponds and see how it reacts to it. I do like how it looks in this pot, but it's definitely not happy because it's not giving me new growth. This is my Philodendron Pink Princess. This is one of the cuttings that I talk about in my Pink Princess care video, and it's doing okay. There's a new growth point here. There's not much that I want to do or style it. I'm just waiting for spring to see if it will, grow faster and look happier. But it's giving me new growth, so there's not much that I want to do with this one. On the other hand, I do want to do something with this Philodendron by Penifolium. This is a plant that I got from a plant swap, and I got it as a little tiny cutting. Since then, it's given me a new leaf here, but you can see that this kind of reverted back to a more juvenile form. It doesn't have the earlobes like this one does. So that's telling me that something's not right. Maybe it needs a bigger pot, or maybe it needs more soil or a different change in environment. I do like how it looks in this pot, but since it's not doing well, I definitely want to change it up, and hopefully that will make it bounce back when the weather gets warmer. Here is another plant that needs some help. It's definitely really happy. It's growing for me. This is the Philodendron Glorious that I also got from a plant friend. This is a swap that we did, and since then it's grown a lot. It's doing really well. It just needs more styling and more support. I'm going to show you why. So here it looks nice in the front, but in the back, oh my god, it's just not being supported by this bamboo stick. I didn't really want to do anything with this since it was like doing well. I was like lazy to change it or give it a new moss pole. But showing you guys, this is definitely something I need to work on this spring. And it's probably growing out of this plant shelf. Shoot, if I like support it properly, I think this is going to be too big for this shelf. On the next level, this is a plant that I want to talk about. This is my STEPHANIA erecta. So STEPHANIA erectas are known to go dormant in the winter, and that's exactly what it did. It went dormant and all the leaves started to turn yellow. I actually took some of the leaves and I made like leaf skeleton art out of it, and it was pretty fun. But this plant definitely needs something. I think I'm going to cut this stem off so that it can just regrow a new stem in the spring. A lot of times people think that the plant is dead when the winter comes around because all the leaves fall off and it just reverts back to this potato form, but it's alive. It's just sleeping and waiting for the warmer weather to come around. In terms of the styling, I think I'm going to keep the same trellis. I do like this trellis look, so when the new leaves come out and the stem comes out, I'm just going to wrap it around this trellis again. Right now it just looks a little bit bare, right? It looks bare and empty. These other plants look fine here. All the ones with the face planters, these Hoyas are doing great, so I don't want to talk too much about it. Oh look, there's a new plant growth. There's a new leaf coming out. Right here, I definitely want to talk about this Philodendron Birkin. Besides the yellowing leaf that you see here, that's normal. Besides that, it's doing really well. It's growing a lot. There's new leaves that came out this winter, and all the leaves have this nice variegation. But if I turn the pot, I will have the same issue as before. It looks a little bit bare, and this is just because, you know, it's on a plant shelf where there's no light on the other side, so obviously all the leaves will gravitate towards the grow light and the natural light that's coming in the front. What I'm going to do with this is definitely give it some kind of support, whether it's a moss pole or just to repot it to look nicer. It deserves something, whether it's like a moss pole or just, I don't know. What do you guys think? I really don't know what to do with this plant. I've never had a Birkin grow so big, so I'm not sure what to do with it in the back, but I like how it looks in the front. This next section over here, this whole shelf, definitely needs more work. Originally, my idea for this plant section is to display all the nice pots that I have along with the plants. As you can see here, it just became a junkyard. I put like a lot of random stuff here, and you have like a terrarium here that I got from my friend at Plant Corner with like peperomias and moss. It really doesn't have to be here. It's like kind of taking away from the plants that are behind it. I have this random orange here that's for good luck from Chinese New Year. And then I just have like figurines that I don't know where to put. I just placed it here. So it's definitely not what I intended it to be a display of like all the beautiful pots that I have. And the plants are not doing well, and we can go over each one. This is my Philodendron PARASIO VERDE. This is a cutting that I got from my friend Caesar. Since then, it's grown some new leaves, and these leaves are really nice and variegated. It has that mosaic pattern to it. In the winter, it didn't really grow that much, but I can't really blame the winter. In the summer, it isn't really growing that much too. This Hoya is also something that I got from my friend Candice. And this is the Hoya AH074. It very much looks like a Hoya pupa calyx. It has like the speckles on it. And since I got it, I just put it in this terracotta pot that I have, a 2-inch terracotta pot. And I think it's because Hoyas really like humidity. And since it's away from my humidifier on the other side of the plant wall, it's really not giving me a lot of new growth. It just keeps growing this long stem. Maybe in the spring I'll do something. I'll probably put it in the south-facing room that I have in my dining room, just because all the Hoyas there are doing really well. This Hoya rotundiflora is something I want to talk about. This one I got 2 years ago, and it hasn't really grown for me. I think it's because when I purchased it, it didn't really have that much roots. So when it was in my care, it took a while for it to establish the root system. And for some reason, every single time it has a new growth, it will just dry out. I don't know what's wrong with it. I've had it in my dining room where all the Hoyas are doing great. And then recently I moved it here on this plant wall to try to change up the environment to see if it'll do something. It still hasn't done anything for me, but it hasn't died and no leaves have fell off, which is okay. But I think I'm going to try to change the growing medium from soil to ponds, because a lot of my Hoyas are doing really good in ponds and I see really good results with that. So that's definitely something I want to do to this plant. Let me know if you guys have this plant and if you guys are doing something that's making your Hoya rotundiflora grow better. Okay, this next one, oh my god, it's so sad. This used to be my favorite plant. It's if you guys watch like any of my earlier plant tours, this is a plant that I got during the pandemic as a tiny baby plant. And I've just also a plant that I've had for 2 years. This is the Philodendron silver sword. It was doing really great. For some reason, every winter, it will just drop the lower leaves, like every winter. I've had it for 2 years. So you can see here, it's gone really leggy from all the leaves dropping. It's been in the same pot and it's growing out of this moss pole, but for some reason, the lower leaves are never happy. I think I've tried cutting this before. Yeah, I've actually tried cutting it before. Here you can see the very thin stem and where I cut it. I actually have this cutting growing in water right now and I just don't know what to do with it anymore. I think it's just unhappy with me. You can see here when there was a new leaf that came out, for some reason it snapped off. I'm very surprised this new leaf is still here. It's growing out of this plant shelf. If you guys have any recommendations, please let me know, because I seriously don't know what to do with this plant. I try to give it a moss pole, you know, proper care. It's growing. It just doesn't look beautiful, but it's growing. Before we go on to the top shelf, I just want to talk about this one plant. It's one of my favorite plants. This is the Philodendron Florida Beauty. And it has this variegation on it that's very nice. Each leaf is different. Here you have some more low variegated leaves. I styled it in this planter from Atrium Studio, and I really like the hourglass shape of it and how the leaves on top don't take away from the pot. You can appreciate the pot by itself, and then you can also appreciate the leaves over here. It's doing okay in this planter. I think it's definitely too small for the plant because I'm noticing roots coming out from the bottom. Even though this planter is so tall, the soil only reaches up to this point. Anything on the bottom is just for aesthetics and it's just to keep the form of the pot. So it's not as much room as I thought it would be. So I think it definitely needs to be repotted into something bigger. There's a new leaf that's coming out here. I don't know if there's gonna be any variegation, but it's doing fine, it's growing, it just needs a bigger pot. Okay, so now let's talk about the plants on the top. The Philodendron micans here, it's doing pretty well. I don't think I want to style it any differently. I like how it trails down from the plant wall. Same thing with this Philodendron Brazil. I like how it's starting to trail down. Maybe I'll give it a little trim, but nothing too crazy. I do want to talk about this Hoya that I have on top here. This Hoya is a known Hoya that I got from my friend Candice as well. This is one of the rehab Hoyas that she imported from Indonesia. And since then, I've just kept it in the leca jar that she gave me. It didn't do anything for me this winter, so I definitely want to try something else with it. Maybe also change it into ponds because all my other Hoyas are loving ponds. So I'll try doing that. And also you can see this is all from the previous damage from the shipping or something. It's still like trying to rehab. I just can't wait for this plant to grow because I love really big Hoya leaves. So I just want this to grow already and give me more leaves. Hopefully in the spring I'll do something different. You can see some root growth over here, so it's definitely growing. Maybe it just needs to establish itself again and establish the root system before it gives me a new leaf. But yeah, I definitely want to try something different and maybe put it in the plant ICU where I have a heat mat. Maybe that will also encourage some growth. This next plant that I'm going to talk about, this is one of Chucky's projects. This is actually one of his plants. It's the Philodendron Dark Lord. This is a plant that he wanted to get because of the name, and also he likes the darker colored foliage. What happened is that it also got really leggy, so all this was stem, and what he's trying to do now is to air layer this. Right, Chucky? You want to talk about your plant?
No.
Okay, fine. I'll talk about it for him. So he's been like diligently air laying this plant, wrapping it in plastic wrap so it'll keep the moisture. And here you can see a lot of new roots forming. His idea is to cut the top off of this plant so that you can have two plants, and also then this plant won't look as leggy as it does right now because all this is just stem. So yeah, that's his little science project. There's new leaves growing out. This one's smaller. I think it's just because of the winter. There's not enough humidity and it's on the top shelf. But other than that, it's growing. It's perfectly fine looking plant. Here is the Philodendron Red Queen. I made a care video about this. I actually have a very exciting project going on where I'm trying to air layer it. I'm going to be doing a plant swap with one of my favorite YouTubers and content creator. So I'm just trying to air layer right now so it has a lot of roots so that I can, you know, grow it and establish the roots for him. So when we do the plant swap, it'll be a very nice, healthy plant. But yeah, I'm really excited about this plant swap. I think I cover all the plants that need work on this plant wall, so let's just go around the house and see what other plants we can work on together. Now we're in my dining room. You're probably used to seeing like the really nice sunlight that comes here. Unfortunately today it's a pretty gloomy day, so I have two artificial lights making my skin look nice. But anyways, I want to talk about the plants that need more attention in this area. Generally, they were doing pretty good in the winter. The plants in this corner were actually growing too fast, like this Syngonium ALBO. This is a plant that I imported from Soil, and this plant was doing so great that I immediately potted it into this pot from my friend Amy Ceramics. It's a really nice matcha colored pot. I thought the color really matched the color of the leaves. When it's together, it reminds me of like watermelon or like matcha latte. The thing is, this plant needs some kind of support. It's just growing way too fast, and if I don't put my hand here, it's actually going to fall like this. So I need to give it some kind of support. I'm not thinking of the traditional kind of moss pole. I kind of want to use driftwood to give it support. I think it'll make a really nice sculptural piece. Let me know what you guys think. I went to the aquarium store and I got some driftwood. So this is a project I'm really excited about. Currently it's just leaning back on the other plants. So let me just put this back before I snap it. Another plant that's been growing way too fast is my variegated Epipremnum pinnatum. I think that's how you say it. This is also a plant that I imported from Soil, and since it's been in my apartment, it's been growing like crazy. This support is not enough for it. It looks a little bit limp right now because I need to water my plants. But yeah, this is another side project, and ignore that leaf that I just threw away. It just snapped. But yeah, another plant that needs more support. So I'm really excited to kind of come up with innovative ways to support my plants other than moss poles this spring. And let's see, another plant that needs some extra support or maybe a good trim is this MONSTERA STANDLEYANA AUREA. You might remember it from my last plant tour video. It was about up to here, I think. And since then it grew this very leggy stem. I think it's because it's looking for support and it just doesn't, the moss pole ends here. So, you know, it didn't have the support that it needed. So it just kept climbing up and up. It's so tall. I need to give it a nice trim and also a new pot because obviously this pot is not enough for it anymore. Let me check if there's any roots coming out. I don't see any roots coming out, but I'm sure this pot is just not enough for it. This spring, I definitely want to chop and propagate this plant. And hopefully in my next plant swap, this will be something that I will be swapping. All these nodes already have like growth points on them. So it'll be very easy to propagate. So another plant I want to talk about is this MONSTERA ALBO. It's a very low variegated MONSTERA ALBO that I got in the beginning of 2021. This is actually this was the first plant purchase of 2021. I got it for $30 as a low variegated ALBO. You can see some variegation here and more variegation in the back. It just didn't really grow for me last year, and I think it's because this pot is way too small for it. I tried propagating, encouraging new growth by putting one of the aerial roots in a jar of water. I just ended up getting a lot of roots and one new leaf. So I think that's telling me that it's not happy in this pot. And I think changing it into a bigger pot will definitely be the best choice for it. Let me know from your experience what I should do with this plant. But yeah, right now it's just like not looking pretty. It looks really ugly with this like jar of water in there with a lot of roots and this moss pole. So this is definitely another project for the springtime. This humidifier from Elaine Combs is doing a great job. All the plants are doing really well this winter and there's a lot of new growth. Here you can even see a peduncle on my Hoya Crimson Queen. This is going to be my first bloom on this plant. I'm so excited. So this plant's doing good. I don't want to talk about that. There's a lot of plants that need work in my apartment, but I see those as opportunities to creatively style them. For example, I want to try different ways to make moss poles and share with you guys. And not just moss poles, but different ways to support plants, different ways to repot plants, just to style them differently in the house. And all the plants that you saw today, I'll definitely be making a video on how to give them a makeover. So that's the direction I want to go with this channel. I hope you guys are excited about this, and I can't wait to show you guys all the projects I have planned for the spring. That's all I have for today. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get my videos weekly, and also join the Feline Jungle family. See you guys next time. Bye!
Next video is going to be a makeover on my Syngonium ALBO. I am loving the results and I can't wait to share it with all of you, so you don't want to miss this episode.